I sent out a little feeler tweet here for the classic community because I told you guys this once and I'll tell you again. Cata is going to be really fun for the first season and then I'm going to quit. And the reason I'm going to quit is because of raid gear. Raid gear is really OP. I don't want to raid. It was like this in TBC and it was like this in Wrath of the Lich King. And I personally think it's the single thing that is going to make participation in these old expansions fall off a cliff. Because people don't want to raid for the most part. At least in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong about this. And I know there's a few people that want to get the best raid gear and have an advantage. But I think that advantage comes at the cost of everyone wanting to quit and not play. So it's like, you can be that guy that has lots of gear and have fun amongst a really small group of community that actually wants to do that. Or like they could make it a little bit easier for people to just get PvP gear and play. So it's like you have to at least acknowledge that. Like if you're one of those people that wants to have the OP raid gear, you have to at least acknowledge that you're driving a ton of people away from playing. For sure. Okay? And I think that's fair. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy. I think that's true. So I said a question for classic players. Would it be a good idea for Blizzard to buff PvP gear in Cataclysm? Not a problem for Season 9, but as the game goes on, more and more people will quit because they don't want to raid. Thoughts? Now, I distinctly remember, like, especially the last season. Maybe it's not so bad next season. It's still a little bad. But in the final season, it is actually completely crazy how OP the gear is. Like, if you're a warlock and you have the legendary staff, Cunning of the Cruel, etc., you legitimately do 40% more damage, probably. Around that. I remember it being about 40% more damage. For no reason. Your character just pisses out more damage. You just automatically do 40% more damage than anyone. It's insane. It's like you're an extra season ahead of gear. It's completely insane. It's like, yeah, the final season is comparable to BFA corruptions. It's like some people get BFA corruptions and some people don't, just from raiding. That's how ridiculous it is. So, like, do you think that that's a good thing? Or do you think that they should, like, buff PvP gear? So I at least just wanted to put a discussion out there because I know there's people on both sides of the fence. So I also said my honest plan is to quit in Season 10 because there's no shot I raid. If PvP gear was BIS, I'd absolutely play. So let's see what people said. Nuno said, I doubt they'll change anything. It was way worse in the previous 2 expansions, so why change it now comes to mind. It was way worse in the previous 2 expansions. That's actually not true. It's not as bad. Cata is worse than TBC, and it's worse than Wrath, in my opinion. And in TBC and Wrath, it was crazy, right? Like Shadowmourne in the final season, like the PvE trinkets you needed for mana regen and damage procs, and Warglaives of Azeroth, 4-set. But Cata is even worse. I really think that. Reverend says, I wouldn't mind if they buff it, but my question would be, how would they buff it for PvP without breaking it for PvE? Unless they did something like the retail PvP gear system with a passive stat increase to PvP combat only. I don't think you have to worry about that because I think PvP gear has so much resilience on it. It's not going to be good for raiding. Like resilience, like the PvP gear is statted so heavily in favor of resilience. There's no way that you would use resilience gear. I wouldn't imagine. Like there's no way you would use resilience gear over the raid gear for raiding. Would make sense if they were hoping to keep people for PvP specifically, but there's always retail for that. Now I don't agree with this opinion at all. To be honest, like I don't like when people say this. No offense to you, Skez. I don't like when people say this. Like I had someone in my stream say that. It's like, well, if you're gonna nerf Cunning of the Cruel, why don't you just play retail? It's like, come on, like be reasonable. What? That doesn't even make sense. Gear grind is never fun. I hate having to acquire new gear every season. I do it grudgingly because I enjoy the game and I love playing with friends and pushing high content. But it always feels tedious and redundant. So yes, PvP gear should be for PvP and vice versa. I think that makes sense to me. Ugly Bald Baby says you can buff it in arena only. Yeah, you could literally make it so in RPGs and arena, for having PvP gear on, you get an extra bonus or something like that. Something. I don't really know how they could do it. I'm not saying that I should come up with a solution. I'm just saying it's a problem that I know I face, where it is a guarantee I'm going to quit Cata, and I know I'm not alone. I'm going to play Season 9. I'm going to enjoy it. And I already have in my head, it's a guarantee I quit for the last 2 seasons. Guaranteed. I know for a fact I won't raid. Yeah, because I don't want to. If it has little to no impact on PvE players, then why not? Yep. Sounds good, Chris. Buff PvP gear and buff currency gain. Classic Cata isn't out for this long. It's a good compromise, making alting easier together. Because I actually think the gameplay in Cata is fun and people want to play it, but I don't think people want to do all the chores and boring stuff. They just want to play. Well, it's definitely my whole 10-player community echoes the same sentiment. Nobody wants to waste days on raid content when they could PvP instead. It's a season 10 quit scenario for all of us. I actually swear there's so many people that are gonna, it's the same thing. So I think it's at least worth having the conversation, like I said. And I know I would be curious what you guys think. This is gonna go up on YouTube. I would be very curious what you guys think. And it's not a problem. I'm not trying to put any negative damper on Cataclysm. I already told you guys, Season 9 is gonna be sick. PvP gear is the best. It's an amazing time. But moving forward, if people are really enjoying Cata, I think you gotta kind of have these conversations. They can barely add the vendor. I'd love to see some tweaks though. They added the vendor pretty quick, to be fair. It's like day 2 of the game. Yes, it's healthy when PvP and PvE... Okay, this person says, it's healthy when PvP and PvE share gear. It increases cross-participation, which I'm a fan of, although I'm not a fan of buffing PvP gear to support a quitter mentality within the PvP community. Rewarding that mindset is a disservice to personal growth. See? This is the opinion of some people. They want it so you do both. But the thing is, here's what I realized. A lot of PvEers want it that way. Like a lot of PvEers want it where you need to, like PvPers should have to PvE, but nobody wants the opposite. Where in order to get the best raid gear, you have to PvP. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants, like nobody is ever out there saying like, in order to raid at the highest level, you need to do PvP. It's always just the opposite. You know what I mean? Like imagine if in season 4 of TBC, the PvP daggers, elite daggers were better than warglaves. That would be crazy, right? Nobody ever wants that. That's not completely true. A lot of people, both PvP and PvE, speak very highly of season 1 Shadowlands where raiders were trying to PvP at 1800 to get equal heroic gear. That was for 1 week, yeah. For 1 week they had to play. They needed to get 1 cap just so they could like get an extra chance at their vault or get the weapon or something like that. All right, so buff PvP gear, nerf mages, remove legendary gear. Okay. Yes, or add a PvP power like stat to the gear like in MOP. I don't think they have to do that. To be honest, I think all they have to do is up the item level of the PvP gear. It would actually probably make the PvE gear still worth using, in all honesty. It would just not make it so one-sided. You know what I mean? Like that, I think an actual good solution would be you just up the item level of PvP gear. That way it like encourages you to use it more. And by not using it, you are losing some stats, but maybe you still get the effects of the raid gear if you like that. I think almost the entire hype for Cata PvP for most people is the ability to use the proc trinkets, legendaries, and deathwing weapons in PvP. I don't know if I agree with that. The entire hype for Cata for most people is the ability to use proc trinkets and legendaries and deathwing weapons. One of the most memorable moments for me in PvP was my rep pally friend proc 3 tentacles and instantly killed their healer in 2s. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe is that, are you guys agreeing with that, or like what do we think? Is that true? Yeah, maybe it is. That or disable legendary weapon effects in arena. Yeah, I don't care. I don't play PvP. Sweet. Disable PvE items or make them available for honor. I don't think they'll ever do that. I don't think that's a good idea, to be honest. And then if I hit show more replies, probably going to be some boobies down there. So not going to do that. But anyways, yeah. I thought it was a fun topic to discuss. And I'd be curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. And I just want to reiterate once again, I'm not trying to like make any problems or any drama for Cata. Cata's great. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I cannot wait for the season to start. I just thought this is an interesting thing to discuss. You know what I mean? Moving forward. And I think the sooner you have the conversations, the better. And maybe something will actually happen. Maybe it won't. Maybe people don't want that. I really don't. I don't know. I just know what it's like for me personally. And that, yeah, I'm definitely not going to be playing the seasons. I just don't want to raid. I don't want to raid. I raided in Wrath. I raided in TBC. And the worst part to me about the raiding was not only did I raid every week, but a lot of times the gear just didn't drop. That's the worst part. You know what I mean? The worst part is that you can actually just raid over and over and over and over and over, and you're at the mercy of RNG for it to drop, which, I mean, some people like. I don't like, personally. Unfortunate. What do you guys think about that? Born Good says, sounds good. They can enjoy that. All 2 of them. I'll be on retail. That's what I think. I think it's at least important to acknowledge that, right? That's one thing that I think if you are on the side of you like raiding for PvP gear and having an advantage, you at least have to acknowledge you are making a lot of people not want to play at all. And you are shrinking the pool by a significant amount of people that will actually play PvP. And then you end up the final season of Wrath where there was 5 people. Disable tier sets and legendary effects in PvP, easy. Well, I don't know if people actually use, I don't remember people using the tier sets. I know people use the trinkets, and I know people use the legendary weapons and like the heroic weapons and stuff like that. You're a daily streamer and feel this way. I work a 9 to 5. I can't imagine trying to PvE to do what I want in PvP. Yeah. I enjoy the PvE procs. I just wish they were nerfed to be in line with PvP gear so you had the option to use them without it being busted. And I think that would be a fair approach, right? Like maybe you have to buff the PvP weapons. You have to buff the PvP trinkets. So it's like at least on par. Now you have all of this in retail. Why would you play an old game and change it? Because, yeah, I don't think you understand. Okay, I feel like I'm getting this a lot. Like, why do you want hashtag some changes? Well, it's because it's like if I asked you, it's like, do you think that they should go back in Cata? Do you think they should go back in Cata and remove Dungeon Finder? Like they should remove Dungeon Finder and dungeon queuing and stuff like that? Because that is what set us down this terrible path of what we've gotten to retail, you know? So like maybe we need to start pruning things from Cata to make it like a pure experience, you know what I mean? It's like I think you can enjoy the gameplay of Cataclysm, and you can enjoy the class balance of Cataclysm and the cadence and all the stuff that's in Cata, and you can acknowledge that maybe some things aren't that great, like the PvE gear ruining PvP. People don't want changes. That's how Classic gained traction to begin with. I disagree. So here's a few things that they've done with Classic that I think were overall a resounding success. Okay? Well, what do you think about them making it so you have an individual rating in PvP? So they removed teams, like 2v2 team, 3v3 team, 5v5 team, and they made it so you have an individual rating. Do you think that that was a good change or a bad change? Because to me, that was a great change. That was one of those changes where it's like, you nailed it. Another change they're making in Cataclysm is there an actual conquest catch-up. So there's a way to catch up on conquest if you fall behind. If that was in Wrath, I feel like way more people would have played Wrath. If that was in TBC, I feel like way more people would have played TBC. They couldn't care less because they don't want PvP. Didn't see that coming. See, that's what I'm saying is like there are changes that they can make that are just a pure benefit to the game. So like those are some examples of hashtag some changes that actually make the game better and more fun for more people. I don't think it's like, oh, you're making a small little change to make it more convenient for people. That makes it retail. I don't agree with that at all. I didn't even try to catch up in Wrath to even start. Well, the thing is, in Wrath, if you fell behind on gear, like let's say in Wrath you didn't play for 5 or 6 weeks, it was actually impossible to get full gear. There's no way to do it. You just couldn't do it. You couldn't get enough conquest, which is goofy. In my personal opinion. Solo arena rating actually in Cata? Yeah, it was in Wrath too. You have an individual rating. Okay, yeah, but probably a good change. But now we had a store, boost, token. I don't trust Blizzard with all that shit. I don't care about any of that stuff. Personally, I don't care that there's a store. I don't care that there's boosts. I don't care that there's tokens. Call me crazy. I know there's like Asmongold probably disagrees with this, but I really don't mind. Store got added in OG Wrath. It's nothing new. I think they added a few things, like some mounts and stuff. You know, like there's a really cool mount that they added. Like if you, for Cata Classic, you can get like a Ragnaros mount. The fact that that was added doesn't bother me even a little bit. When I see people with it, I don't get FOMO. I don't get jealous. I'm like, oh, they bought a mount. Cool. doesn't. I don't actually care about it even a little bit. Maybe there are people that care a lot, but yeah. Anyways, fun conversation. Fun conversation. Thank you. Thank you for humoring me. Unfortunately, though, when you market something as classic, but then remove a fairly significant thing like PvE gear and PvP, it fundamentally changes the experience, which you can argue is good or bad, but lots of people are going to complain just because it's different. Yeah, and then you have me complaining that it's the same. So it's like, no matter what, people are complaining. But at the end of the day, I think you got to make the choices that make more people play the game. Because I think it's so obvious. It's like, there's this thing in Classic that sucks that makes people not want to play. I love retail PvP, but for me, the game has such a low player base that it makes you not want to play because you spend most of your time standing around. Would not be the case with the only game in WoW instead of 3 versions. I think lots of people play retail. I hope they do something, but if not... Yeah, that's a really good point. I hope they do something, but if not, whatever, I'll just quit in Season 10. Yeah, me too. Like I said, I think there's a lot of people on that boat. Oh, actually, yo, there's a few more comments that we missed. There's a few more comments that we missed that I think are worth shining a light on. So Infernion says, I'm also very likely to quit after Season 9. I don't want to feel forced to sit and raid, especially considering I already did it back in original Cata. It would be awesome to see PvP gear buffed, or better yet, add in PvP only PvE items for purchasable for conquest points. So that's a solution. That's an option too, where they could add the raid gear for conquest that only works in PvP. So everyone can use the items. Now, I don't know if you think that's a good solution or not, but I would be okay with that. Someone who didn't care back in the day. I'm already seeing the comments. Oh, you want all the benefits without any of the work. That's what's wrong with today's generation. Yeah. As someone who didn't care back in the day, how much stronger is the PvE gear? Will it be possible to play in full conquest? No, it's not 5 or 10% disadvantage. It's way more than that. It's like unplayable completely. Yeah, like just to give you guys some context, when we used to do RBG boosts, which we did RBG boosts, we would literally kick rank 1 PvPers for raiders. Like if there was a warlock that had all the raid gear and was way worse, we would literally boot our rank 1 warlock to get whoever did the most damage. And the people that did the most damage just had all the best gear. I'm not joking. You could ask like Snuts and stuff like that. We would literally just poach people that did damage with PvE gear over like actual gladiators and stuff like that. It's because their dots did 50% more damage and AoE'd the whole team down. Does he ask PvP gear should always be BIS? I do think the idea of adding PvE items to PvP as a PvP that has stats specific for PvP would be a cool idea to explore, like legendaries, rings, and trinkets, but probably a retail thing. Yeah. Absolutely the same. I want a PvP, not raid. Okay. And yeah, some hidden stuff. But yeah, a few more points.